What if I told you that you are working way too hard for your food? Every single spring, millions of gardeners break their backs tilling soil, pulling weeds, and babying delicate vegetable plants, only to start all over again the next year. But what if you could plant something just once, forget about it, and harvest hundreds of pounds of staple food for the rest of your life? Today, we are talking about the ultimate lazy gardening secret. We are going to explore the forgotten bread tree that literally fed millions of Americans with free flour and provided incredible rot-resistant wood. I am going to show you how to grow this miraculous tree in your own backyard with almost zero ongoing effort. But I have to ask you a controversial question first. Why do we obsess over growing difficult annual crops when nature has already perfected the ultimate perennial food source? Think about that, and let me know in the comments if you prefer annual vegetable beds or perennial food forests. Stick around, because the truth about this tree will completely change how you look at your backyard. To understand the magic of this tree, we have to travel back in time. Long before massive wheat fields dominated the landscape, the American chestnut tree was the undisputed king of the eastern forests. It was literally known as the bread tree. People did not need to plow fields to get their carbohydrates. They just walked into the woods and gathered the nuts, which are so packed with complex carbs that they can be ground into a sweet, nutritious flour that acts just like wheat. It fed millions of people and wild animals alike. Plus, the wood grew incredibly fast, straight, and was naturally resistant to rot, making it perfect for building homes and fences. Sadly, a blight wiped out nearly all of the original giants in the early 20th century. But here is the amazing news. Thanks to brilliant plant breeders, we now have blight-resistant hybrid chestnut trees that you can easily grow at home. They combine the legendary flavor and timber quality of the American classic with the toughness of the Chinese varieties. This means you can bring the ultimate survival tree right into your own garden. Let us start with the very first step, which is choosing the absolute perfect spot in your yard for your new bread tree. Most beginners make the mistake of treating fruit and nut trees like delicate little flowers, placing them in the middle of a manicured lawn. But think of your tree like a solar panel that also needs good drainage. If you put a solar panel in the shade, it produces nothing. If you put it in a swamp, it shorts out. The same goes for this tree. You need to find a location that gets at least 6 to 8 hours of direct sunlight every single day. But here is the secret to lazy placement. Look for a gentle slope on your property. Planting on a slight hill guarantees that heavy spring rains will drain away from the roots. There is a massive myth in the gardening world that trees need to sit in wet soil to drink. The reality is that constantly wet roots will drown your tree faster than a drought. By choosing a naturally draining slope, you let gravity do the heavy lifting for you. You will never have to worry about digging complex drainage trenches or fighting root rot. It is all about working with the natural shape of your land. Now that you have your perfect sunny slope, let us talk about digging the hole. If you ask 100 different gardeners how to plant a tree, 99 of them will tell you to dig a massive, deep crater and fill it with expensive potting soil. I am here to tell you that this is the fastest way to ruin your tree. It is called the bathtub effect. If you dig a huge hole in heavy clay and fill it with soft soil, water just pools in that hole like a bathtub, suffocating the roots. The smart, lazy way to plant is entirely different. You only want to dig a hole that is exactly the depth of the root system, but twice as wide. Think of it like setting a dinner plate on the ground instead of digging a well. You want the roots to spread outward horizontally, not plunge straight down into an abyss. In fact, leave the very top of the root flare slightly exposed above the natural soil line. This simple trick mimics how seeds naturally sprout on the forest floor. It encourages rapid outward root growth and guarantees that the trunk will never rot from sitting in a puddle. You save your back, and the tree thrives. Once your tree is resting perfectly in its shallow, wide home, we need to talk about the most powerful tool in the lazy gardener's arsenal. I am talking about mulching. But we are not going to use that dyed red wood chips you buy in plastic bags at the hardware store. We are going to mimic the natural forest floor. Think of mulch as a thick, cozy blanket for your soil. It regulates the temperature, holding in moisture during the blazing summer and keeping the roots warm during the freezing winter. The myth here is that leaving the soil bare around a tree makes it look neat and tidy. In nature, bare soil is damaged soil. What you want to do is lay down a thick layer of plain brown cardboard right over the grass around the tree and then pile on 4 to 6 inches of organic matter like fallen leaves, straw, or aged compost. Keep this blanket a few inches away from the actual trunk so it can breathe. This single action stops weeds from growing, drastically reduces how often you need to water, and slowly feeds the tree as it breaks down. It is the ultimate set-it-and-forget-it feeding system. With the tree in the ground and heavily mulched, the next big question is watering. The biggest mistake people make is giving their trees a tiny little sprinkle of water every single day. That is like giving a marathon runner a tiny sip of water every 5 miles. It just teases them. When you water lightly, the roots stay right at the surface of the soil to catch those tiny drops. When a hot day comes, those shallow roots dry out instantly, and your tree suffers. The secret to drought-proofing your orchard is deep, infrequent watering. You want to soak the ground thoroughly, leaving a hose on a slow drip for an hour or 2, and then do not water it again for a week or even 2 weeks. This forces the roots to dive deep into the earth, searching for that moisture. Think of it as training your tree to go down to the basement to get its own drinks. By doing this in the first year, you are building a resilient, independent tree that will eventually never need you to water it at all. You are trading a little patience now for a lifetime of absolutely zero watering duties. Now, we have to talk about defense because you are not the only one who knows how delicious this tree is. Deer, rabbits, and voles will look at your freshly planted sapling and see an all-you-can-eat salad bar. The traditional myth is that you need to spray foul-smelling chemicals all over your yard every time it rains to keep the animals away. That is way too much work. Instead, we are going to use the fortress method. Before you walk away from your newly planted tree, simply take a piece of sturdy wire fencing, shape it into a cylinder about 4 feet high, and stake it securely around the tree. It is like putting a knight in a suit of armor. For the tiny critters like voles that might chew the bark at the bottom, wrap the base of the trunk with a simple plastic tree guard. This takes exactly 10 minutes to set up, and it provides 24/7 protection for years. You will sleep perfectly fine knowing your future food supply is safe from the local wildlife, all without ever lifting a spray bottle or checking traps. As your tree enters its first full growing season, you are going to face the ultimate test of a lazy gardener, which is doing absolutely nothing. There is a massive urge to constantly fiddle with a new tree, to hit it with synthetic fertilizers, or to prune its little branches. But you have to understand the rule of sleep, creep, and leap. In the first year, the tree sleeps above ground while it frantically builds a massive root system below ground. Think of it like building the foundation of a skyscraper. You cannot see the progress, but it is the most important part of the job. If you hit it with high nitrogen chemical fertilizer now, you force the tree to abandon its root building and push out weak green leaves that bugs will instantly attack. The myth that more fertilizer equals faster growth is a trap. Just let the thick layer of organic mulch do its job. It will slowly release the exact nutrients the tree needs at the exact right time. Your only job this first year is to sit back, admire your work, and let nature take its course. While you are waiting for your tree to grow, let us talk about what is happening around it. A smart homesteader never plants just one thing in isolation. We use a concept called plant guilds. Think of a guild as a supportive community for your bread tree. Instead of grass, which actively fights your tree for water and nutrients, we are going to plant helpers. The myth is that weeds and other plants will steal from your tree. The reality is that the right plants actually feed it. You can scatter seeds of deep-rooted plants like comfrey or dandelions around the base. These act like nutrient pumps, mining deep into the soil and bringing rare minerals up to their leaves. When those leaves die back in the winter, they drop those minerals right onto the tree roots. You can also plant nitrogen fixers like white clover, which literally pull fertilizer out of the air and inject it into the soil. By establishing this tiny ecosystem, you are creating a self-fertilizing forest. You will never need to buy a bag of store-bought plant food again. Eventually, your tree's going to put on some serious size, and that brings us to the dreaded topic of pruning. Pruning terrifies most beginners because they think they need an advanced degree to do it right. The common myth is that you must aggressively chop your trees every single winter to make them produce. But remember, we are growing a massive nut and timber tree, not a delicate peach tree. The lazy approach to pruning this tree is called the central leader method. Imagine the tree as a pyramid. You just want one strong main trunk going straight up the middle. During the first few winters, simply walk around the tree with a pair of sharp clippers and snip off any branches that are competing with that main middle trunk. Also, cut away any branches that are rubbing against each other or growing inward. That is it. You are basically just directing traffic, telling the tree to put its energy into a strong vertical structure. Once the tree is tall enough, you can stop pruning entirely. Nature knows how to grow a tree. You are just giving it a gentle nudge in the right direction. As your tree matures, you might start noticing a few bugs hanging around. The knee-jerk reaction for most people is to panic and run to the store for a harsh pesticide. But here is the problem. Pesticides kill the good bugs right along with the bad bugs. It is like dropping a bomb on a city just to catch a few thieves. The lazy and smart way to handle pests is to let the predators do the work for you. By having a diverse yard with flowers and herbs near your tree, you will attract ladybugs, lacewings, and parasitic wasps. These tiny warriors are nature's pest control. They will patrol your tree and eat the aphids and caterpillars without you lifting a finger. Furthermore, a healthy tree planted in good soil with proper mulch naturally produces its own defensive chemicals. A bug might take a bite, decide it tastes terrible, and move on. By focusing on the health of the soil and creating a balanced environment, you completely eliminate the need for chemical warfare in your garden. Now we reach the exciting part, the flowering stage. This tree does not produce those big, showy, delicate flowers like an apple tree, which can easily be destroyed by a late spring frost. Instead, it produces long, fuzzy catkins that bloom much later in the season. This is a massive advantage for the lazy gardener. It means you almost never lose your harvest to weird spring weather. However, there is one critical secret to getting a massive yield of nuts. These trees are not self-fertile. That means a single tree cannot pollinate itself. You must plant at least 2 of these trees relatively close to each other, ideally within 50 feet. Think of them as a team. The wind will catch the pollen from one tree and carry it to the other. If you only plant one, you will get beautiful wood, but zero food. So, when you are planning your lazy orchard, always plan in pairs. It is the same amount of effort to dig 2 shallow holes as it is to dig 1, but the reward is hundreds of pounds of food. As summer turns into fall, the magic really begins. The tree will start developing these incredibly unique, spiky green burrs. They look like little green sea urchins hanging from the branches. Inside these prickly fortresses, the starchy nuts are growing fat and sweet, perfectly protected from squirrels and birds. The great myth of harvesting from large trees is that you need dangerous tall ladders and special picking tools to get your food. But this is the lazy bread tree. You do not pick the harvest. The harvest comes to you. When the nuts are perfectly ripe and ready to eat, the spiky burrs will pop open on their own and drop the nuts straight onto the ground. Your entire harvesting process simply consists of taking a bucket and a pair of thick leather gloves, taking a nice autumn stroll, and picking your food up off the grass. It is the easiest, safest, and most relaxing harvest of any staple crop in the world. No plowing, no threshing, just gathering. Once you have gathered your bucket of nuts, you cannot just bite into them right away. If you try to eat them straight off the ground, they will taste a bit bland and starchy. They need to go through a process called curing. This sounds complicated, but it is actually the ultimate lazy food processing technique. All you have to do is leave them alone. Simply spread the fresh nuts out in a single layer in a cool, well-ventilated space, like a garage or a covered porch. Over the course of a few days to a week, the nuts will lose some of their moisture, and the complex starches inside will magically convert into rich, sweet sugars. You will know they are ready when they feel slightly softer and the inner kernel shrinks just a bit away from the shell. This natural curing process is what gives the nuts their legendary sweet flavor. You are literally letting the air do the cooking for you. It is just another example of how this tree works with you, not against you. Now that your nuts are perfectly cured and sweet, it is time to get them out of their shells. Many people get intimidated here, thinking they need commercial nut crackers or hours of tedious peeling. The myth is that processing nuts is hard labor. But the lazy homesteader knows the hot water trick. Simply take a sharp knife and score a small X on the flat side of each nut. Then drop them into a pot of boiling water for just 2 or 3 minutes. This quick blast of heat causes the shell to peel back right where you cut it, like a flower opening up. After you scoop them out of the water, the outer shell and the bitter inner skin will practically slide right off in your hands. You can process dozens of nuts in a matter of minutes while standing comfortably in your kitchen. This simple preparation step unlocks the massive calorie potential of your harvest without breaking your fingers or your spirit. With your nuts shelled, you now have a choice. You can roast them for a delicious snack, or you can turn them into the ultimate survival food, which is chestnut flour. This is why it is called the bread tree. To make the flour, you simply take your shelled nuts and dry them completely. You can use a food dehydrator on a low setting, or just leave them in an oven on its lowest temperature with the door cracked open until they are rock hard. Once they are fully dried, they will last for years without going bad. Whenever you want to bake, you just toss a handful of these dried nuts into a heavy-duty blender or a home grain mill. In seconds, they shatter into a fine, sweet, golden powder. This flour is naturally gluten-free, easily digestible, and acts as a perfect one-to-one substitute for regular wheat flour in pancakes, breads, and muffins. You have just produced high-quality flour without ever starting a tractor or swinging a scythe. Let us pause for a moment and look at the nutritional miracle you have just created. The flour from this tree is unlike any other nut. Most nuts, like walnuts or almonds, are packed with heavy oils and fats, but the chestnut is fundamentally different. It is primarily made of complex carbohydrates and water, making its nutritional profile incredibly similar to brown rice or sweet potatoes. It is a genuine staple crop that can sustain heavy physical labor. On top of that, it is loaded with high-quality vitamin C, which is incredibly rare for a nut, along with essential minerals like potassium and magnesium. When you plant this tree, you are not just planting a snack. You are planting a primary calorie engine for your family. During tough economic times or food shortages, having a reliable source of healthy, starchy carbohydrates right outside your back door is the ultimate form of self-sufficiency and peace of mind. But remember, we promised you free flour and free wood. This tree is a dual-purpose powerhouse. Let us talk about a magical ancient forestry technique called coppicing. If you ever need strong rot-resistant timber for building a fence, a raised bed, or even firewood, you can literally cut this tree down to the stump in the middle of winter. The myth is that cutting down a tree kills it. But this tree has an unbelievable will to live. Because it has established a massive root system underground, it will immediately send up a dozen new perfectly straight shoots from the stump the very next spring. These new shoots grow at an explosive rate, sometimes several feet in a single year, because they are being powered by that giant mature root system. In just a few years, you will have a cluster of straight poles ready to be harvested again. You can harvest the nuts for a decade, cut it down for premium wood, and then let it grow right back to do it all over again. As the years roll by, you will notice something incredible about the yield curve of this tree. Unlike annual vegetables that give you a set amount of food based on how much you plant every spring, this perennial tree compounds its interest. In year 3 or 4, you might get a handful of nuts to taste. By year 7, you are harvesting buckets. By year 15, a single tree can drop 50 to 100 pounds of food. And the best part is, your labor actually decreases as the yield increases. You no longer have to mulch it, because it drops its own massive leaves every autumn, creating a perfect self-mulching system. You never have to water it, because its taproot has reached deep underground aquifers. The tree becomes an independent entity that simply showers you with food every single fall. This is the true definition of smart, lazy gardening. Front-load a little bit of smart work on planting day and reap massive, exponential rewards for the rest of your life. Let us talk about extreme weather, because the climate is changing, and summer droughts are becoming a massive headache for traditional gardeners. If you grow tomatoes or corn, a 2-week drought can wipe out your entire season's effort unless you are out there watering every single day. But your bread tree simply does not care, because we trained its roots to grow deep during that first year. And because it has a thick armor of bark and a massive canopy that shades its own roots, it is incredibly resilient to dry spells. While the grass around it turns brown and crunchy, your tree will remain vibrant green, silently pulling up water from deep within the earth. It is a biological water tower. This means you can go on a summer vacation for 2 weeks without hiring a neighbor to water your garden. It gives you your freedom back, proving that the best homesteading systems are the ones that do not require your constant supervision. Even though your mature tree is largely independent, there is one super lazy trick you can use to supercharge its growth in the fall. It is called the chop and drop method. When you do your autumn yard cleanup, do not bag up your leaves and organic debris to send to the landfill. That is literally throwing away free fertilizer. Instead, rake all the leaves, grass clippings, and small twigs from your yard and simply push them right under the canopy of your tree. You are recreating the deep, spongy, humus layer of a wild forest. Over the winter, worms and beneficial fungi will come up to the surface, eat that debris, and turn it into rich black worm castings right over the tree's roots. You are essentially composting in place. No turning hot compost piles, no hauling heavy wheelbarrows of manure. You just drop the organic matter where it falls and let soil biology do the physical labor. It is the perfect closed-loop system. Ultimately, planting this tree is about much more than just saving money on groceries or avoiding garden chores. It is about creating a legacy. An annual garden dies with the first frost, leaving nothing but bare dirt. But a well-planted chestnut tree can live for hundreds of years. The tree you plant this spring, using these lazy, smart methods, will not just feed you. It will grow to provide shade, free flower, and beautiful wood for your children and your children's children. You are permanently increasing the biological wealth of your property. It requires a shift in mindset, moving away from instant gratification and embracing the slow, powerful rhythms of perennial agriculture. But once you experience the joy of walking out your back door to simply gather buckets of staple food without having lifted a shovel all summer, you will never want to go back to traditional tilling again. So, there you have it, the complete blueprint for growing the ultimate bread tree. We started by busting the myth of deep planting holes. showing you how shallow planting and thick forest mulching save your back and accelerate root growth. We covered the secret to deep watering, the magic of attracting predator bugs instead of using chemicals, and the brilliant simplicity of gathering your harvest right off the ground. But the most amazing twist is the fact that this single plant gives you both sweet, gluten-free flour and endless rot-resistant wood through coppicing. By taking just a few hours this spring to properly establish a pair of blight-resistant hybrid chestnuts, you are setting up a food production system that will literally outlive you. You are trading endless hours of weeding and tilling for the peace of mind that comes with a permanent, resilient food forest. Thank you so much for watching. If this video changed how you look at growing your own food, please hit the subscribe button and give the video a like so we can keep bringing you the best lazy homesteading secrets. Now, I want to hear from you. Have you ever tasted chestnut flour? Or are you planning to plant your first tree this year? Drop a comment below and let us start a conversation.